Snowblower won't start. What do? Let me show you. Now, whether the snowblower is yours, the one you're currently using, the one you used yesterday, or like this one, just a random one I found on the side of the road for nothing, I'm going to show you the steps that I go through anytime I bring in a machine that I know no history of, and how I get it up and going. One of the first things I always check, usually it's good, but is spark, because that'll help me eliminate other issues. So one of the first things I do is pull the spark plug and use a spark plug checker, or you can just do it with the spark plug by just pulling the spark plug out, setting it down, making so you can see the electrode is up, and actually just pulling it over from there. And we got spark. If you don't have spark, if it's old enough machine, there's a good chance the points are dirty, but there's also a good chance that just something like this key switch or something is off. So make sure all the key switches and everything else are on. No spark also can be the kill wire, which kind of goes into the key switch. The wire is right here on this machine. And you see this wire, one wire right underneath the carburetor. There's one wire that comes right off your ignition coil, and that'll kill everything. So sometimes you have multiple switches and levers and stuff like that that actually kill it, little key switches and stuff. So you can just actually remove the screw right here and just isolate this kill wire so it's touching nothing. Make sure it's touching nothing, and you still got no spark, you're going to have to dive into the points or the coil. We got spark. This spark plug's not too bad, but I'll still clean it. I won't invest any money into these machines until I get them running. Sounds a little bit weird, but usually the average machine I invest nothing into. I will clean this with a blowtorch. I'll put a link to that right after this, and then I'll re-gap it. Most small engines are 30 thousandths. I don't know what that is in metrics, but we'll put this back in. I'll snug this up. We got good compression. There's no weird noises or anything else like that. Can't really do compression tests on these machines because they have a compression release built into the cam, and so even a good engine will only read somewhere around 80 psi, but you'll be able to feel it. All these Tecumsehs work about the same way. You have what's called a heater box, which is this thing, which engulfs half the muffler, and the carburetor is underneath this, and what it does is it just pulls in heat. The carburetor pulls in heat from around the muffler and just keeps the carburetor from icing up. This particular one just happens to have the chute control in the way, so we'll just move that. But then we can access the carburetor. Most of these just have a bolt on top that you just have to loosen, and then two Phillips screws that attach into the front of the carburetor. This one is a little bit older design where there's actually a pull choke. I've actually only seen one or two other ones like this. Most of the time, the pull choke, you have a little twisty knob, and sometimes you'll have either a key switch here that goes to your kill wire, or you have a little plastic doodad that pulls in and out. So make sure if you're missing the plastic doodad that pulls in and out, that it's not killing in there if you don't have spark. But this just slides off. Sometimes you got to mess around with the throttle control a little bit, work it around. And then I got my primer button right here, which just forces air into the carburetor. And a lot of times on Tecumsehs, they're actually mounted right here with a little black rubber hose. There we go. This little black rubber hose that actually rots away at the carb right here. So, but most of the time, all you got to do is cut it and put fresh hose onto it. But usually it comes around. So that's one of the reasons your primer wouldn't work. So now we're going to work on the carburetor because we know we got spark, we have compression, and now we just need fuel. And pretty much if you have spark and you have compression, but even with those, the number one reason that these things fail to start is this little guy right here, the carburetor, and they virtually all look the same. So if you ran this yesterday and it just won't start today, there are a couple tips and tricks I can show you. One of the first being is just draining the fuel bowl. And that just involves a little nut right on the very bottom and just loosening that up. Whether it's a Briggs & Stratton Tecumseh, whatever it is, just loosening that up. You don't even have to remove it all the time. Most of the time, sometimes you can pop the bowl off just a little bit, not all the way. Let all the fuel drip out and then tighten it back up. New fuel will come in and it'll run. If it's been sitting outside and there's water in here, sometimes you'll actually need a hair dryer to warm up the bowl to melt the ice that sits on the bottom. and then drain it, and it'll run. But if it's been sitting like this, we're going to need a carb rebuild. I virtually never do them on the machine. And that's just straight water right there. That's no gas at all. That's just water. So that just shows you this wouldn't start even if I poured fuel in it. It would just finish gumming itself up. Actually, all the rubber feels good on this. But we're going to remove the fuel line. The thing is, though, on these old machines, the fuel line gets super brittle. Not that it won't hold fuel, but to get it off, we're actually going to use a blow dryer, well, a heat gun, to actually just warm it up, and then it'll slide right off. Because we want to be really careful with this plastic fitting right here, because these will snap and will break, and if they do, you're in a little bit of a crap shoot, but you can just, there's enough of a nub there that I've actually been able to hook, well, get another little piece of hose, run all new hose and hook it to the nub, or you can JB weld the crap out of this thing and get it back on and then slide it on. But you got to be super careful, but I do get them to work, and then they work for the rest of the life of the machine. But let's heat that up and take that off. It's nice and supple now. It actually moves. It wasn't even moving before. If this is a machine you recently ran and you're doing this and you don't want to lose all your gas, get a Phillips screwdriver ready because it's nice and round. Make sure the tip is clean, and when you pull this off, just jam that up in the fuel line and it'll stop it from running out. But we should be able to, with this nice and warm, just slide this right off and back, because you can't access the bolts this on. And then that's up out of the way, and now I can access just the little teeny bolts easy enough. Another little thing is sometimes if your machine's been sitting for a while and just one season or even a couple months and you can't get it to start, a lot of times the old gas will dry in there, and this is your main butterfly back there, and that'll just stick. And sometimes just even freeing that up, because it'll stick in the closed position or in the full open position, but a lot of times in the closed position, and so it can't rev. You'll get it to sputter but not run. Sometimes just reaching under here and grabbing the governor arm or something and just moving it back and forth, spraying a little carb cleaner down there or a little WD-40 on the top, but really it gets gummed up back in there, and then see, it'll just move freely where it wouldn't have been able to break itself free before. But there you go, she just slides right off, but we want to get this choke lever off first. With these Tecumseh carbs, a lot of times they'll have multiple ports or multiple spots for the governor linkage to hook in. You notice there's actually a second spot right here, and if you really want it over there. So just mark them, and the best thing to mark them with is just a scratch. So I'm going to rebuild this. I've got pretty much every single carb video out there to rebuild, but generally, I mean, this won't take any parts. I'll be able to clean this up without investing a single penny into this in 5, 6, 7 minutes, and put it back on, and we'll pour some gas in it and see if this snowblower I found on the side of the road runs. There we go. Only took me a couple minutes to actually clean the carb. Linkage is all put back together exactly where it was. Tecumsehs like to gum up or kind of get a little dry behind this little lever back here, so I like to spray a little lubricant right there. This one didn't have any gas in it, so I'm going to actually just let the fuel line out right here. And I see a lot of people have this issue, is they actually will take an old machine and they'll pour gas in it, or there'll be old gas in it, and there's old gas in the line. They'll clean the carb, they put this back on, then they put new gas in it, and essentially what it does is it flushes the crap back into their clean carb. So I'm going to flush it out with some clean gas. We got a fuel shut off on the other side so we don't have to waste. And then I'll just come back over here. And it's a little bit cold out here, so, and that actually kind of stiffened up again, so just preserve that line. I'm going to reheat it a little bit. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's turn on the fuel. Let's watch for leaks. There shouldn't be any. That's filling up the carb bowl. Now, if this is rotted away like it virtually always does, usually there's enough here just to cut off a clean spot and put it right back on. It's the ethanol in the fuel. This machine has been sitting a long time. I got this 3 years ago or so on the side of the road, and by the looks of it, it's been sitting at least 10 years since then. It's a 80s model, and this isn't all corroded, so I know that it never had ethanol in the fuel. So I'm actually running ethanol-free fuel in it right now, but any machine will run better with that. But we'll stick that back on. The primer button, the way this works is this actually just forces air into the bowl, and then the air pushes on the gas, displaces the gas, and the gas is forced up into the throat of the carburetor. So if I push this enough times, gas will sometimes dribble out the front, and I get comments on that all the time. People are super worried about it. Up in the first time in 15 plus years, pull out the choke, prime it a bunch of times, and let's see if she goes. Well, there you go. Really doesn't get much better than that. First pull, in 15 years. It runs beautifully. It idles beautifully, which is good. I did have to adjust the fixed jet on the bottom a little bit to give it a little more fuel, but that's a different story. But now I know that it's a running machine with zero invested. I can tackle other things. Like if I didn't think it was running quite right, I could put a new spark plug on if I need to. But generally, I mean, I very rarely ever do that. I can change the oil if I want, but usually I like to warm it up if I do that. A machine that's been sitting this long, I probably will, but a lot of times if the machine's newer, I won't even worry about changing the oil because the new owners always like to do that. But now it's ready just to kind of clean up, lube the chute in other areas, and we'll go from there. This wasn't going to be a carb repair video. If you do need carb repair work, I have a video on pretty much every single one. I'll put go to my channel, look there. I'll put a link to a bunch of the main carbs there. You know, I got a couple really quick 5-minute carb repair videos that you can repair your carb in 5 minutes for the simple little problems. But thanks for watching. Check me out on Facebook. Put a link below, thumbs up below, and leave a comment or ask a question. I answer pretty much everybody's question unless it's not a good question to answer. Thanks guys. See you soon. Bye.